All right, guys, it's me and Gov. We're gonna do something we don't normally do, which is we are going to build a lineup, and I have a preset free lineup here set up, and we're not actually gonna build the lineup, Gov, because as you know, I think you agree with this as well. It's no fun to when I go fishing. I'm not looking to go to the convenience store and pick up a goldfish on the counter. I'm looking to go and get the fishing pole, get the worms, get my hand in the dirt, and that's kind of how I prefer to build. So I was going to talk more about process and players that we like over here, XYZ, here's what you build. Before we got in here, though, we were talking about guys that we should definitely have in our lineups. Why don't we just talk about guys that you definitely want to fade and why?
Well, my first thought on that is I kind of want to fade Jordan. Don't know if he's getting a lot. Like I say fade, but I doubt he's getting a lot of ownership. But I think that's smart on the field. Poole was not playing well. He was getting beat on defense in game one, and he might be the liability here. The one with the least amount of experience going into these playoffs. So he would be my big fade.
And I want
from this game. I don't want hardly any Jordan Poole.
I just want to say, like, people know us at this point. This is Wheels Up Podcast. You guys should like and subscribe. We're trying to get this out quick to see how the SEO does. So I'm talking faster. I'm not going through the same presentation, but you guys know Wheels Up, me and Gov. I got Jordan Poole set up here. Gov, we're also talking about game 2. I should mention it. We're not talking about the whole series. So when Gov says he doesn't like Jordan Poole, he's saying he doesn't like him today. But in 2 days from now, you know, he might be the Game 7 Warrior. So you never really.
Oh, yeah. I might love him game 3 or game 4.
Right. Price dependent is so valuable to these type of things.
Yep.
You know, we're not talking about a fair play.
Now, that's the thing. Poole's at a good price range where I can see people wanting to play him, but I don't like it.
See, I'm the opposite. I like Poole. I would fade Curry. I was listening to Kevin O'Connor and the Ringer guys today talk about how it's a small sample size because Boston doesn't play the Warriors that often. But actually, Curry has some of the worst stats against one of your favorites. I know, Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart plays some of the best defense on Steph Curry. And given that Curry came out with such a dominant first quarter, I could see people overvaluing that. And not that you would fade Curry, but I would definitely fade Curry in the captain spot and play Poole just because I think Poole can get just as hot as Curry. Like, obviously, Curry's more consistent. He's more proven. But at this point, I don't think, I don't think people will factor in age as much as they should with Curry. It's not to say he's bad. I actually think he's having his best year statistically, especially driving to the rim. He looks stronger than ever. I mentioned that to Mike a couple days ago. But I just think, like, they might decide if they get up in this game, Poole's still going to get minutes late in the game, is what I'm saying, where Curry would be more likely to rest.
I think it's the opposite of that. If they get up, yeah. Although if they get up, Kerr will just empty the bench and play fucking Damon Lee and Moses Moody.
You think so? See, I think Poole's had such a
it depends on how much up. Like they were up 13 to start the fourth quarter in this last game, and then they lost by 12. So like if they're up 25-30, yeah, he'll empty the bench at like 4 minutes left.
I guess what I'm saying.
If it's a 15-point game, Curry's on the court till the final minute.
No, I agree.
If it's anything under 20, Curry and the starters are on the court till the buzzer.
Well, what I'm saying, though, is I think Poole is bulletproof to the point where if it's a blowout, he still plays. If it's a blowout either way, he still plays. If it's a close game,
I'm not so sure about that. If it's a blowout in favor of Boston, it's probably because Poole is playing so poorly you need to get him off the court.
You might be right.
Like I don't see them. I don't see a scenario where Boston blows them out, where it's just because like Looney and Draymond are playing shitty, or Clay's just like no, those guys will shoot out of it, or they'll play better on defense to like adjust until their shots start going in. They're smart players. They have that thing. Poole, if his shot's not going in and he's getting beat on defense, the smart move would be to take him out and put in someone solid so you can try to make a run. I could totally see if Golden State's down, Poole doesn't see the court, and you just get Curry, Clay, Wiggins, Draymond, Looney the whole game.
Fair.
Trying to come back. Or instead of Looney, Otto Porter. Because you still need – because I think Poole's problem is even when Boston goes small, they're still bigger than Golden State.
Right.
So when Looney comes off, you can't just put in Gary Payton and Jordan Poole when they're putting in Derek White, because then Horford still kills you. And Tatum's still big, where Draymond's got to guard him. So, like, my sneaky cheap guy, other than Smart, I would say I love Otto Porter tonight. I think he's the guy you probably need to have. Especially with no Iguodala. I think Porter's probably going to see a lot of minutes off the bench if he can play them.
Yeah, I love Porter tonight. The only problem is they still think he might be around the 25 to 30 minute mark.
That's all he should play, though.
At this point,
he has that foot injury still.
Exactly. Like at this point, given his price, given his evaluation, like 30 minutes, even 25 minutes of his price is still valuable. Well, so talk about smart things to do in resting and coming off an injury. Let's talk about Marcus Smart really quickly. Why do you like Marcus Smart so much?
He has had, again, small sample size, like you said, but he has been very good against Golden State this year, including game 1 and the 2 games they played during the regular season. I think it's something about Poole. He ends up getting the defensive matchup from Poole and Curry. And as good as Curry is, he's not a great defender. And I just went over why I think Poole is getting beat this series and could get played off the court because of his defense. Well, so Smart is just most likely, like, to start, Smart's going to have the best matchup defensively on the court for him to attack. Now, Golden State will play good defense and they'll switch, and if Smart starts going hot, it'll be Wiggins or Clay guarding him. But that's where, like, when they did that last game, Jaylen Brown would just get guarded by Smart or Curry, and then he also had an amazing game.
And I don't want to play it off with our viewership like they're stupid because we got it on the screen. But he's had some really good games in the last few weeks. I will say the biggest change for the whole Celtics team, and this goes to Marcus Smart being not only the vocal cheerleader to make this move and take on the initiative to do it. When they took Marcus Smart off the ball and they put him as the primary point guard, that the team changed the whole outlook of the season. So, like, the reason they're probably here is because Marcus Smart bought into playing point guard. Similar to how Anthony Davis for the Lakers didn't want to play center, Marcus Smart wanted to play point guard and took on that role, and that changed that team. Another guy that stepped up who didn't show last year because he was stuck with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Why do you think Al Horford's a bad play? Is it just because coming off the good game, his ownership's going to be too high? Give the people the quick hitter on Al Horford and why you wouldn't pay $11,400 for Al Horford today.
11-4 at captain, it's a little much. Like, especially when you have Wiggins, who's slightly cheaper. You have Clay and that who have higher ceilings and are cheaper. So
again,
pricing wise at captain, I definitely don't like Horford. In the utility, again, he's in the same range as all of those Golden State guys. He's a little cheaper than Smart, but he's the one dude where he could be the odd man out. This last game, he was getting open shots and he hit all of his threes.
Yes.
Like, specifically, he went 6 of 8 from 3-point range. That's ungodly. 9 of 12 from the field. Like, this last game that he did very well, he basically didn't miss. If you just go down to his career average on that and say he only made 3 of 8 threes, and he only went. That would mean he only went 6 of 12, or 5 of 12 from the field.
He shot
now instead of scoring 26 points, like he shot 75% from 3 and 75% from the field. You bring that down to like 45%. Instead of 26 points, he's only scoring like 17 or 18. Now Golden State's within 6 the entire time instead of being down 12. That's a completely different game. So, like, I think he had one of his best games of the series.
Yeah.
I think he's due for he's got negative regression coming his way.
And even if
because.
Well, I was just going to say.
Now, I'll admit, the last 2 games before that, he had horrible shooting. So, like, 12%, 22% from the field in the last 2 games before that. So he was due for a good shooting performance.
Right.
But I still think he's probably going to shoot more in that 45 to 55% range like he averages. Maybe a 60% free from the line. Maybe 60% from the field. But I don't see him going 75% from 3 like he did that game.
I will make one case why he's still maybe a good play if you want to go this route, even though I do agree with you. If you look at the law of averages, his shooting percentage over the last 3 games was pretty bad. I mean, we're talking 16%, 16%, 33%.
Yep, that's exactly what I was pointing out. Like, he was due for a big game. I don't think he does it a second time in a row. So I think he's my fade for the day.
And I agree with you on the witch magic, the feeling, the intuition, the shower narrative. I know
guys just don't run that hot. Like, the guys who run that hot for multiple games are the guys that you are MVPs. That's your MVP, right? Like, a guy to run that kind of 70% shooting for like 3 or 4 games, that guy's in the MVP race. That's your Giannis. That's Joker. That's guys like that.
And I think
Al Horford, as good as he is not an MVP caliber. So I think he is due for some negative regression. Is he going to go back to shooting 12% like he did in that one game? No. I think he bounces back to more along his career average, but that's still like a 45 to 50% shooter, not a 75% shooter.
Right.
So I think, like, he had his big game. He might still end up being optimal, but he's not a captain.
Yeah.
He's definitely not in my captain pool. But then again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Horford is trying to win that ring, knowing this is probably his last year, and he is going to give it everything. He has played really well, and it's not that he hasn't had these 70% shooting games throughout these playoffs against Milwaukee and against Miami, but they're not multiple in a row. It's like 1, maybe 2, then a bad game or 2, then 1, maybe 2. I think the Milwaukee series was the one where he had like 4 or 5 good games out of the 7.
Not to go on too long here, because we want to get on to other players.
Right.
But I did want to say, as an old fan, as a basketball old man who actually Al Horford might be like one of the last samurais from my childhood. I'm cheering for him, and I think you can cheer for guys, but also understand when there are good DFS plays versus bad DFS plays. I would say, as a utilities, I'm fine with it because he's averaging almost a double-double.
Yeah,
but
in the utility, he's about the same play as all the guys in the same range.
Right.
But for a captain spot, I don't see his ceiling tonight, so I would rather have a Wiggins or a Clay or someone else in that range.
But just a couple years ago, we saw Kevin Love have a similar game with LeBron James, where he just shot the lights out in the finals for the Cavaliers. And then bounced.
And could Horford do that again? Maybe, but I think I'm assuming he already did that.
Right. And I just think it's a matchup thing. So who is the underrated guy that you want to talk about? For me, it's Otto Porter. I'm going to steal this one for you because I've been giving you the first pick all the time. Otto Porter, even if he only plays 24 minutes, is a great play.
Let's see, underrated.
Just while you think about that,
I wish he was a little. Okay, so I have one. I wish he was a little cheaper.
Okay.
But I do like Robert Williams today. I think that they're going to need his size. If it's just going to give them, it's going to force Golden State to play more Looney, which if he doesn't go all Looney Tune, could be big for Boston. And like again, it's sort of the opposite of Horford. Time Lord just had kind of a day, so maybe he has a solid game. Boston's going to need it if they're going to win this second game. I mean, he could be sneaky. I wish he was like 6K, like
Poole
or 6,400, like Poole, or something more along lines like Derek White price. Yes, I do wish he was a little cheaper. I still think he's a little expensive, but in that same range, like he's 6,400. I would probably play him over Looney, and I'd probably want to play him over Poole.
Yeah, I mean, he's almost averaging a double-double just like Al Horford, but he's a lot cheaper than Al Horford.
Exactly. I think if I was going to play a big from Boston, it's Time Lord.
It's
Robert Williams.
Now, we're also geeks, maybe we just like the name Time Lord.
Maybe, but like if you're playing a Williams from Boston, I'm playing Robert.
But I'm more of a Whovian than you. I think you're more the Star Wars and the Star Trek game. So the Time Lord really speaks to me. Who is the one guy that like people see maybe during the playoffs that isn't going to be a factor? For me, it's Peyton Pritchard. For some people, it's Daniel Tice. I'm just going to rattle off some names, and then you tell me when to stop if I come up with somebody you like. But I think Tice, Pritchard are bad plays tonight. I think people are going to think they can play, but I think it's been proven that Pritchard doesn't have the defense. And
he doesn't. But I think Pritchard is okay. If Golden State keeps playing Poole, they will be more willing to play Pritchard for Boston. And I think these first two games, Boston's going to try to play a slightly deeper rotation just because they need to keep their legs for the series after having to go 7 against Miami. Whereas Golden State probably came out a little, other than Curry, they came out a little flat game 1.
I'm going to let you be the mailman. I'm going to let you deliver to the people, Gov. And I'm going to be your John Stockton here. I'm going to set you up. You tell me when to stop when it comes to Golden State. So Iguodala is out. Who is the main guy out of these cheap guys? Peyton, Looney, or not Looney, Kuminga.
I can stop you right there.
Bielitsa.
Golden State will run an 8-man rotation.
Okay.
I'm going to say it right now. Golden State's going to run an 8-man rotation. They're going to run their starting 5 with Curry, Clay, Wiggins, Draymond, Looney. They're going to have Jordan Poole. They're going to have Otto Porter, and they're going to have Gary Payton come off the bench. Okay. I don't think Bielitsa or Kuminga or Moses Moody see the floor.
I agree with you.
Barring blowout run, I think they've got their chance. He's seen what he needs. And what he's going to try today is to put more defense on the court at his guard position, which is why I think Gary Payton is the one who's going to step into Iguodala's minutes. I honestly, if they didn't rule out Iguodala, I'm playing Iguodala. I had him all day until that.
I did as well. But why do people like Bielitsa? I'm seeing a lot of Bielitsa on Twitter. Is it just the name? Is it just people trying to throw the stink off at other guys? Like, why do people like Bielitsa so much? Because if I'm going to go this low, I'm going Gary Payton Jr. for the reasons you mentioned, trying to get that versatile defender on the court.
Yeah, I don't know about Bielitsa. Like in this series, I think we've seen like maybe they like him because if you could get him to play well, and he did play well in that game 5 against Dallas, like he's a solid small ball center.
Yeah.
Like he's basically like a Dwight Powell.
Or Maxi Cleveland.
If he could come in and still give you some rim protection while also being able to shoot threes and basically act like Al Horford for them, where you don't have to play Looney, that could be good. But I haven't seen that from Bielitsa. He's not like he hasn't been that. He's basically been like a slightly more vertical defender version of Juan Toscano-Anderson. They're basically the same person, except Bjelica has a slightly better rim protector, and Toscano-Anderson has a little better side-to-side defense.
So I want to keep this under 25 minutes, Gov, because I think the longer it lives, but the longer it lives, closer to lock, but the shorter it is, the better. Is there any quick hitters you wanted to hit me with? Any questions that you wanted to throw out to the people to get them thinking?
Well, my first thought would be, of the three-man core that's not Curry and Looney, who do you like the most from Golden State? Clay, Dre, Wiggins. Who's your favorite?
Wiggins, because he's more athletic.
I was actually going to say Draymond, mostly due to pricing and
I would say
his pricing is lower than them, and he is always active. And like if he gets the minutes, he's always active and he's always putting up. Whereas Wiggins could just play badly and have a bad game. I don't see when Draymond plays badly, it's because he kicked someone in the nuts or got a technical foul or something.
Yeah, and that's why I don't like him, Gus. I don't know if you know this, but game one was, I think, the fewest fouls ever called in a finals game in like the last, I want to say like 5 to 6 years. It was like some historical stat. Like basically they don't know why, but the referees swallowed their whistle, for lack of a better term. Like there just wasn't very many. And I think we might see a kind of shift in that, just to make sure that the series doesn't get out of control. And we know Draymond Green's reputation. And even if he doesn't get ejected, I'm not calling for that. It might start to play into him. And I still think he's like teetering, where he's like, he's going to be cheap because he had a bad first game, but he's still too expensive for his expectations for me. I tend to go more younger, more athletic, and Wiggins is only a little bit more.
See, I would give you that, but then in the last game, like Draymond was right behind Wiggins, and I don't know about you, but they called a decent amount of fouls in that game. I mean, Draymond fouled out in game one. Curry had 3 fouls. Wiggins had 3 fouls.
Hey man,
Iggy came in off the bench, got 3 fouls.
I'll be the first one to admit if I'm wrong, but I did hear that stat. But
no, I honestly had to go back and check that, because it didn't. I watched that game and it didn't seem like it was unusually not fouling for a game, especially against 2 defensive teams. And now I'm going back and looking at the stats. I'm like, wait, there were fouls all over the place. There's a guy who fouled out. There's multiple guys with 2 and 3 fouls off the bench, even like Derek White and Iguodala both have 3 fouls off the bench.
Well,
like Boston didn't commit a lot of fouls, but the Warriors at home were not getting calls.
Maybe that's where I want
that could be something to watch out for. The Warriors did not get calls game 1 at home. That's a little iffy. Now Draymond to foul out.
Well,
stuff like that. Yeah.
That's why I want to take ownership, because that's what this podcast is about. It's about being wrong and letting that moment kind of like live and create this family environment. Like you're most honest with your family, you're most raw with your family. That those are the people you break bread with, that you have a melting pot with. So that's what this conversation is with me and Gov. I'm not trying to say I'm right. We're not even giving you a full roster build. Speaking of the chef, though, what do you think about Curry tonight as we wrap up the show? I'll give you the last minute on Curry.
Okay. Hold on 1 second. Okay. All right, say that one more time. Sorry, I just.
Well, he might have been too spicy for you. What do you think about Curry? I was going to give you the last minute on Curry as a take.
He was so hot in the first quarter.
Yep.
But then they played him the entire first quarter. I thought it was weird that he played 12 minutes. Like, I think he might have burned himself out for the game, because he was good. He had a very solid game, but I don't know.
So do you think we get a more balanced approach, and he actually?
I do. I have seen it multiple times throughout the playoffs where Golden State will play a very balanced game, and everyone will have a solid to good game. Like all of the stars. It won't just be like fantasy-wise. It won't be a 55-point Curry and then
Yep.
33 for Wiggins, 20, 20, 20, 27, 27, 26, or something like that for the rest of the team. This is going to be one of those games where no one scores over 44 fantasy points, but everyone has above 36. So, like, this is going to be a game where, like, Clay, Dre, Wiggins, and Curry all have, like, 39 to 40 fantasy points. And so they all look like the same play. In which case, I'm looking at ownership and salary, which is why I like Draymond as a cheap play. I think if you fade Curry and just play Clay, Dre, Wiggins, you can still build a really good lineup.
Oh,
And I think if I'm willing to, like, pay up for, like, an expensive guy, it's Tatum and Brown over Curry.
I agree with that. I was talking to Mike a couple of days ago, and the reason why I pay with Jason Tatum over Curry is because when you talk about having to pay up for a captain, I need you to do multiple things, and it just comes down to I think Jason Tatum has more of a chance for a triple double. And
the key I've seen is when you're paying up for those kind of captains, you either need a really cheap guy that's going to have a good game so you can fit it.
Yep.
Or you need to know that dude is going to be like a Luka or a Joker and go for 60 plus fantasy points. And I think only Tatum and Curry have that kind of ability. So they're the only two I'm really considering as like a 14, 15 plus K captain.
I like it. Now,
which is why I think Smart is my favorite captain.
I'm going to get this out of here so we have some time to breathe. I do want to say we are at 53 subscribers out of 100, so we are gaining. And we are going to have a special guest on Tuesday. Another podcast is collaborating with us on Tuesday at 10 o'clock Eastern Time Tuesday. We're gonna just shoot the shit like we always do, barbershop style, about a lot of different sports. This guy, he like knit sports from golf to the USFL to the NFL. He does a cool family style podcast with his kids. So that guy's really cool. He's gonna stop in on Tuesday. But for now, we're just gonna wrap this up. We're gonna keep it nice and short and concise, and enjoy the finals. Really enjoy it. Hopefully,
these are going to be some good games. If you like basketball, these are going to be 5 to 7 good games.
Yeah, and I think
I still like my prediction. Warriors in 6 though. I'll keep to it.
I think it speaks to the finals. Usually good because the teams don't usually play each other, but I do think that's going to lead to close games, and really that's what we want at this point as fans. But Good night, guys. Take care. Be safe. The world's an interesting place as it always is. So stay interesting and watch something interesting. And I think this playoffs is going to be very interesting. So enjoy it. Good night. Take care.
Remember, everyone, be smart. Good lineups are easy to build. Just don't do stupid stuff.
Yeah. Don't overthink it trying to buy the fancy toilet paper you're going to throw away.
And a key to this game specifically, from what I'm seeing, be okay with some money on the table. Not a shit ton, but 700. You don't need to move up to a guy. Just leave 700.
Yeah, that's a way to be different, and that's what you're trying to do.
It is a way to be different, and it is a smart. When all these guys are within $200 of each other, you don't have to spend that money. You can totally just leave like 700, 800 on the table and play the 2 or 3 guys you want instead of the 2 guys you could get to.
Yep, good advice. That's great. Good night advice from Gov. Who we're gonna shut it down now, and hopefully somebody wins. And you come back and you say we helped you out because really that's what we're trying to do here. So take care, guys. Good night.